Yeah, okay. So I suppose initially I'd like to thank the VisionID people for putting this together today. Very good mix of vendors, end users, clients, and I suppose it's driving, what I see is it's driving the new process of trying to gather and understand what data is in plants and use that data to maximize efficiencies, maximize optimization, and essentially return investment to shareholders. So what I'm going to try to do in 20 minutes, Peter has me under time pressure here, is cover snippets of what is probably a day, 2-3 day seminar if people were really interested. So I'm going to shoot through a lot of the different topics. I'm not going to go anywhere in detail, but I'm just going to essentially whet everybody's appetites. So I'm going to go, what is manufacturing intelligence? What are the business drivers for manufacturing intelligence, manufacturing optimization? What kind of data are we looking at? Some typical solutions vendors, again, I'll go through a small bit on that. Developing the business case, so I hear a lot of people saying, well, I think we need it, but we don't know how to sell it, we don't know how to price it, we don't know how to get funding from corporate. Some execution strategies and some challenges. So the case for change, okay, very straightforward. And Mr. Henry Ford said if we always do what we always done, you'll always get what you've always got, right? So what I'm saying there is that if everybody stopped what they're doing today and let the competitors move on, where would we be in 5 years, right? So we have to keep changing. We have to adopt the technologies. We have to move forward. We have to optimize our processes, right? So there's no excuse and no reason why we can say, well, we're not doing anything. We don't have any money. You won't have any money in 5 years anyway because you'll be out of business. Another one, Benjamin Franklin, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? Now, there is a few Cork people in the audience and a few Man United fans, so we better give this man credit for it. Saipan 2002, Roy Keane has also said the same thing. And we've seen where the Irish team went since then. Okay? So my own background, that Peter said, just 25 years in manufacturing automation. In that time, I suppose I primarily focused on technology, right, for end users and using that technology to bring end user benefits. Not really interested in, whether that's the best transmitter or that's the best transmitter, whether that's the best SCADA system or that's the best SCADA system, whether that's the best MES or that's the best MES. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to get across to end users is that you need to adopt the technology, and we'll worry about the specifics of the bits, bytes, and whatever underneath it and the functionality after we get the business case together and after we understand what is the drivers for the business. Okay, here's another part of my career profile. Back in 1987, I remember loading a DCS system with an 8-inch floppy at 3 o'clock in the morning with 1 meg of data, hoping that I didn't bend the floppy when I put it in. These days, like, everything is on iPad, and where EMC are telling us we're going is that we have this new terminology, gigabytes, which I've never even heard of before until I started doing a bit of research. So by 2020, we'll be operating in the gigabytes. So you've heard it here today, maybe for the first time. But what I'm really saying is by the time I retire, hopefully before 2020, actually it won't be retired by 2020. By then, this data explosion will have hit us, and it is hitting us every day. So we need to move on, right? I got into the automation business because I essentially wanted to see what we could automate and what we can move on from manual operations. So 1987, field instrumentation, measurements, whatever. And now it's MES, PLC SCADA systems, DCS systems. Okay. So what is manufacturing intelligence? So it refers to an important class of information that enables better decision making, improved business performance, with the ready availability of real-time status data and performance metrics. So the key things there are it's real-time, it's performance metrics, and it helps us to make decisions. Again, the difference between manufacturing data and other data is that it applies to production planning and asset management activities. We all hear about ERP and other stuffs. What I'm looking at here is on the manufacturing layer. So why we want to do it? We want to do it to achieve higher levels of productivity, reduce cost, and ultimately improve the bottom line. What will it do? It'll aggregate, it relates, it presents both operational and business data in real time. And in doing so, it's intuitive and useful for every individual who plays a role in delivering results. So what I'm saying there is that no point producing data, no point producing fancy graphs and curves if it's not relevant and if it doesn't help the end user. So where it can be applied, it can be applied to individual sites, it can cross sites, cross divisions, across regions, and essentially it's an enterprise solution. Okay, so again, one thing I wanted to cover as well here was big data. So everybody's hearing about big data. What is big data? What is business intelligence? What is manufacturing intelligence? So business intelligence, in terms of timeframes, it deals with historical data. So sales data, customer relationship data, stuff like that. So it's measured in months, quarters, years. Whereas manufacturing intelligence data is minutes, hours, days. Again, business intelligence data, areas of interest, financials, CRM, supply chains, and manufacturing intelligence, manufacturing engineering, quality. The people who love business intelligence data are big data, the corporates. Those who are interested in manufacturing data are essentially the local plant and feeding that data back to corporate. The focus for business data is strategic, manufacturing intelligence is tactical. So what are we going to do today? What are we going to do tomorrow? The cost impact on the organisation, bottom line. The reason I put this in here was that a lot of us struggle as end users or as end user representatives to justify to corporate why we want money when they've just spent $1 billion on a business intelligence project. Now, to be fair, the business intelligence projects can really impact the bottom line. So I'm saying greater than 10% of a turnover can be impacted by the bottom line. So what I mean by that is that if, say, a business has a turnover of $1 billion a year, it, by the information it's gathering from its business intelligence, can develop a product, develop a new business line. The potential is, it could create a business stream, product stream of 100 million a year. Okay, what I'm saying is if we can then, in the manufacturing intelligence space, if we can increase our throughput on a plant which is producing, we'll say, $10 million a year worth of product, can we increase that output by 10, 15, 20%? And will that have a 1% or greater impact on the overall business bottom line? So really, they're two different areas, but both I would contend are justifiable. And I suppose if we look back on some of the presentations this morning with specific numbers, percentages, whatever, I think there's a business case there for manufacturing intelligence. So what are the corporate business drivers? So we ensure consistent quality and performance across global operations. So what I'm saying is that this is the kind of stuff that, as we report on a daily basis out of our plants, what are our corporate people in the US, Europe expecting from us? They're expecting on a plant-by-plant basis, they're expecting assurance, consistent quality and performance. Not only on the plant in Ireland, but the plant in Poland, the plant in Asia, the plant in Eastern Europe, the plant in South America, right? No excuses. They want to balance the manufacture with demand to optimize material usage and asset utilization. So, plant in Ireland is utilised 70% of the time. The plant in Asia is used 120% of the time. Well, how does anybody know that? If that data can be fed up to corporate on a real-time basis or near real-time basis, well, then they can make strategic decisions about assigning the next batch or the next lot or the next work order. Improve and meet regulatory compliance. Okay, some people here may or may not have the pleasure of dealing with regulatory compliance. I presume at this stage most people do. But a lot of the times, regulatory compliance and an audit, the threat of an audit, will knock fear into most companies. It shouldn't. It should be a routine thing. It should be something where all the data is available easily, retrievable easily. And again, if you look at recent trends on FDA audits, they've actually written letters, warning letters to clients on the fact that they haven't been able to produce the data in the required time. So The expectation of an FDA audit is that you can produce data in less than 4 hours, right? If you don't produce the data in less than 4 hours, well, can you not find it? Are you hiding it? Are you manipulating it? What are you doing with that data? So FDA and other regulatory authorities realize that a lot of this data is electronic. So if you cannot produce it quickly and efficiently, what are the reasons? And they have started issuing warning letters on that. Or guidance, sorry, not warning letters, guidance on that. Again, more flexible, agile plant manufacturing operations to respond to changing market conditions. So a lot of products are getting more, I would say, designer-based, even down to what we would call standard products. So I've seen, if you looked at last week, the Entrepreneur of the Year, some guys on that for making mashed buds and selling them. 5 years, 10 years ago was bags. So we have to be able to respond to the market. We have to respond to the consumer. If we cannot change the plant quickly and easily, well, somebody else will. Again, a response to events on the shop floor. So what's acceptable downtime? Is it an hour? Is it a minute? Is it none? That actually depends on, I suppose, the value of the product and the efficiency and utilization of the plant. So if you're making product worth $1 million a week and you shut that plant down for 5 hours, I'll let you do the numbers on that, and then let you work back the return on investment. So by making faster, easier decisions, can you get that plant sweating, essentially? So the demands on metrics on on-time delivery, right? We have to get the repair times down. We have to increase our OE and reduce the cost of design. So again, with IT infrastructures, they're changing every day. We need to reduce the cost of IT to plants. It's an overhead, right? IT organizations, as much as I'm involved in IT organizations, they're overheads. They don't produce anything. They produce lots of data, but they never actually add to the bottom line. They're an overhead and expense. So if we can converge, we can reduce and make the deployment of IT across plants more efficient, then it will impact the bottom line, okay? So just some recent research. Again, Aberdeen Group, if you ever want to develop a business case, go to Aberdeen Group, go to Gartner, go to ARC Advisory. They'll all give you numbers, right? I'm cautious enough I don't want to reproduce too much of this stuff, but the numbers are there, right? So the leaders, like 98% NPI introductions, new product introductions, right? So can you get a product into a plant quickly? Can you get it qualified? Can you get it producing? And can you get a return on your investment? 95% OE, now that may sound very high to a lot of people here, but when you're on fast-moving consumer goods, you need to be doing those numbers. Some of us are in pharmaceutical. If you get half of that, you're probably lucky. But we need to be pushing that OE number up. The 95% on time completeness of shipping and 25%. So that's the big one, really, for shareholders. They couldn't really care about the top three. The shareholder wants to know, well, what's his operating margin from the plant? And the CFO wants to know, well, I have plant A in Ireland, which is operating at 25% operating margin. I have plant B, somewhere else is operating 2%. Well, who's going to stay alive and who's going to disappear, right? Again, typical scenarios. I think we've all been there. So all the systems are there. Most people have the systems, or I have some parts of the systems. How will I find the solution? Where's the answer? My plant is stopped. How do I find the answer? And then you start saying, well, okay, there's a correlation between my process control system and the training records. The guy wasn't trained, yet he started a batch. He put in the wrong set point, and now I've lost a batch, right? My maintenance management system, the instrument wasn't calibrated. Off I went. Realized afterwards that the temperature had an excursion. I lost the batch. $1 million lost. Again and again, right? So MES, interfacing to training records. So this is what we're faced with, and trying to find a solution within that is not easy. And so again, I'm going through a lot of this quickly, guys, but stop me later on if you have any questions. Again, in terms of if you look at this on the levels, this is level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 in traditional ISA standard S88, S95. And we just see the reaction to that time. So we're reacting from seconds up to quarters. And we're working our way up through the plant from the field device all the ways up to the corporate systems, right? So down here we're reacting to alarms. At the top we're reacting to demand. Just as a very aside, but just the power of people. So people underestimate, we're blowing ourselves away with technology here. We underestimate the people. So if we were able to give the people up to the minute view of what their performance, if we were able to present them with all the information they needed to make good day-to-day decisions, if we took the learning away from the old timers and subject matter experts and made it freely available. So I took it away. So I took it from. So the gentleman from Motorola mentioned this earlier on. There's a huge problem in probably the Western world of those who know what's going on, and the transition from those people to the newer engineers, and a lot of that knowledge is lost as people retire. It's not stored in systems, so capturing that knowledge would be of fantastic value. And essentially, if we empowered employees, if we gave those on the floor the ability to make their own decisions, and give them the right information, we will end up a lot more productive. So we'll give us fast decision makings, more informed decision makings, more accurate decisions, less reliance on scarce senior resources. So how many times have we, for example, in a plant been stopped for 3 or 4 hours because it's 3 o'clock in the morning, the subject matter expert is in bed, he won't answer his phone, and there's nobody there with the right information or experience to make a decision, right? What I'm saying is that information is in the system somewhere. Let's go find it and let's present it to those who can make the decisions now, right? Again, a typical work, supply chain, right? So I'm going to shoot very quickly through this. So we're traditionally used to the ERP, that's boxed off at this stage, right? So the business units, interaction between business units, interaction goods in, goods out. But then as we go down through the manufacturing layer, right, this is what we have at the moment. We have islands of automation, right? So the pilot plant might be in the States, the bulk plant might be in Ireland, the finishing plant might be in Germany, the packaging plant might be in Korea, right? And then we scatter all those across the globe and we go, well, how the hell are we going to manage that at a corporate level? So what we need to start doing is we need to start transferring and exchanging the data between the plants on a vertical layer, and we also need to be able to start transferring that data on a horizontal layer. So if I'm a subject matter expert in my plant, my packaging plant in Ireland, why shouldn't I be able to get the best practice from the packaging plant in Poland? Why shouldn't that information be available to me on my web browser when I want to make a decision? So can I then use a subject matter expert in Poland who has a packaging experience to help me optimize my plant? So this information, my contention is this information is all in systems that I showed you earlier on. What we need to do now is start using that technology to pull it all together and start making sense of it. When I was doing research for this, I found 1,000 articles and I'm not exaggerating, I just had to start chopping through stuff. But that's all in Google. I can find that in 2 minutes. Yet we can find out that my sister plant in Poland has had a problem with its packaging line for the last 6 weeks, and it's the same one that we've had. We need to move on. We need to start using the data, right? Again, I'm going to chop through this because I'm under time pressure. So, again, a typical plant. So again, within a typical production chain, each unit operation within that manufacturing plant, is that linked together, right? Do I know that my raw material that's dispensed in the warehouse is going to impact my setup of my line? Do I know that my unit operation, will say that I need to change because I changed my set point on unit operation 2, which might be, a lyophilizer, it could be a filter dryer, it could be a whatever, How do I know that needs to change something on unit 3? So we need to communicate this information. How do I know that the operator on unit operation number 2 at the end of his shift didn't finish off? And now I have an operator on unit operation number 3 waiting for that information. Do I have to ring him up? Do I have to look at a shift log? Or can I just open up a web browser and take that status from a screen? So what I'm saying is get rid of the silos within the plants, get rid of the silos between the plants, and get rid of the silos between the business units, right? So we're not competing, and again, I suppose it's something I've come across a lot, especially in Ireland, where we're all in the same game, right? So we know everybody in every other plant, and we tend to kind of actually compete as a country rather than as an organisation. So why are we competing? Why aren't we sharing the information with the rest of our organisation? So if the organisation itself is successful, it'll rise the boat of the whole organisation. Right? So same thing. Again, as I'm just, how am I doing, Peter? Are you time over there?
Yeah, you're good. 2 minutes left.
Okay, a lot of slides left there. So again, the architectures are there, right? So God bless Cisco. Cisco have really driven the whole infrastructure and enabling architecture across the business. They started at the business layer, and now they are actually pushing that on into the manufacturing layer. So if you, again, I'm not going to tell you how to do this, but if you go onto the Cisco website and you have weeks and weeks of time to read stuff, you will get all the answers you need, right? So what I've done here is I've just put up the reference architecture. This is the Rolls Royce of architectures, in that it provides all the security and protection that you need when you start connecting the manufacturing layers to the business layers. And a lot of time I hear, oh no, IT won't let me do that. If I pump a hole in the firewall, they go bananas. I can't connect. I can't have a single log on, all this kind of stuff. The solutions are there. They are expensive, but then again, you need to offset those against the value of your product down at the field level. The DMZ is a demilitarized zone. It essentially means that nothing gets down, nothing gets up, and that at that layer, anything that is at that layer, sorry, I presume there's a pointer, isn't there? Okay, sorry, okay. At that layer, anything is replication, right? So down at this layer, at the level 0, 1, 2, 3 layer, you're protected, right? And below this layer, you can also protect below this layer at a segregation level, either physically or through virtual networks. So none of this, there's no excuse for anybody to have problems these days exchanging data. A lot of the applications are now SQL enabled, so SQL enabled, so getting at the data is not as difficult as it used to be either. So again, I'm not going to give you any more detail on that. It's there, and it's easily available. Again, without selling anybody, without doing anything right, there are solutions out there, right? I'm probably getting daggers from all sorts of people here who are in this game, but what I've split them into 2 sides. So operational intelligence and manufacturing execution, or as Des talked before, the break about MOM, which is to be the new sexy word for MVS. It's the same thing. So the question is, and I hear it a lot, and vendors I think hear it a lot, is do we need an execution system or do we need an information system, or do we need both, right? And these are information systems, these are execution systems, and somewhere in the middle there is a bit of both. And depending on where you are, what you want to do with it, that's a decision you need to make at an early stage, and it's probably a decision you need to make before you start bringing all of these people in and playing them off against each other to say, well, give me an MES system. No, but all what you actually need is an MIS system. Give me an MIS system, but actually you want to transfer workflows and dispense goods and whatever from the warehouse. So you need to just carefully consider that. Again, quickly on implementation strategy, right? So, okay, look, I've gone through all that architecture, this one, right? Geez, we'd love to have that. We've loads of money to do it. But now, how do we do it, right? We've loads of plans, we want to get it going, right? So I always use this philosophy, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? So what I don't want to do is I don't want to have a big bang, right? So take it easy, take it one step at a time and avoid the big bang. So to do that, I suppose, again, I'm a great proponent of piloting, vertical slicing. You know, take it, understand what you're actually doing, go back, refine it, iterate it, and come back to a point where you then, at the end of it, are ready to write a detailed set of requirements. Challenge I've seen in a lot of places is that you jump in, you write a big, huge URS, it's all over the place, the vendors don't know what they're doing, they quote it, and then you end up, you don't get what you wanted. So what I would say is start. The first thing is, again, a bit like myself, be passionate. So there's two people you need to build a business case for this. You need a visionary. You can need somebody who can see 5 to 7 years down the road and say, well, yeah, that's where I think we need to be, right? That needs to be somebody who is at a reasonably senior level in the organization, right? You also need a salesman. You need somebody who might be a visionary, but he also can actually interact with the corporate people and say, look, this is why we need it. This is the business case. This is what it'll deliver. Thank you. I don't know why you don't understand me, right? Start with a pilot, right? Work your way down through a vertical slice of one plant. Involve the stakeholders. So I may say it later on, but this isn't an IT project, guys. As many of IT people are in the plant, are in the room. This isn't an IT project. This is an operations project. So IT is an enabler. IS is an enabler. We will help deliver the project, but we don't benefit from the project at the end. The operation develops, so that benefits. So you need stakeholders to deliver that, right? Don't go off on a one-man plant solo. We'll be better than the rest, and then look, we'll prove to the lads in Asia that we can do this better, right? Bring all the global players with you, because at some stage they're going to knock you off the rails anyway if they don't like what you've provided. Get the involvement of the technology suppliers early, because you might be doing it for the first time. A lot of these players are doing it for the 5th, 10th, 100,000th time, and they've been developing the strategy for years. You know, they will give you the information. Initially, it won't cost you anything, and you need to just use it. Maybe there's a couple of people probably in the room will shoot me for this one, but don't assume the market leader has the best solutions, right? So what I mean by that is that corporate went out 10 years ago and they all bought Blackberries. Geez, that was a great idea. Where are the Blackberries now, right? Now they're all migrating to Apple or whatever, right? So look at what technologies are out there. Look at where they're going. Look at, are they at the top of their life cycle? Are they at the end of their life cycle? Again, you look again back on the pharmaceutical side. If you look at the likes of Delta V came in 1998, right? 4 controllers could do maybe 150 I/O without keeling over, right? A lot of companies bought something else at that time. They said, well, here's the market leader. But that technology was moving faster and at a better pace than most other technologies, right? So those clients who had chosen that system now have a solid system. Those that choose the market leader at the time are now left with legacy systems. So the market leader isn't always the best, right? And then after you've all done that, then develop your requirements. So how do you do it? Right, so develop a core solution. Now what I mean by this is that don't choose a system and then fire it out to 5 plants and say, right, off you go lads, you do whatever you want. Get a core team and build a core solution. So put that solution together and say, well, here are all the things that need to be in every instance of this that's across the globe. And then you work with your supplier to build that core solution and lock down the core solution, right? Once you get that done, then roll it out to plant type 1 and implement the site-specific stuff. Plant 2, site-specifics. Plant 3, site-specifics. Plant 4, plant whatever, site-specifics. Don't forget then you need to roll back, feed back to the core anything that you believe that would be valuable to all the plants, right? And the core team should have a solid governance over the process, right? So don't let somebody do a solo run on plant 3 because it's fancy. Because when you go to migrate this or upgrade this in 3 years' time to the latest version, you'll find out that your core is not aligned, and then you're going to end up having to go individually and migrate the whole lot again, and upgrade everything individually. So the total cost of ownership, while it may be a pain for each individual plant, the total cost of ownership and the functionality spread across the plants is better if you have a core solution. Right? And then you just keep adding plant types. So the business case, so again, this is probably stuff I'm telling people that, you know, it's sucking eggs really for most end users. So you have to have a project starter, have to identify the stakeholders. It's not, I said, an operation project, not an IS project. Identify the success criteria at the start, right? Corporate will give you theirs, but you need to get them at the plant level. Establish the tangible and non-tangible benefits, and tie the project back to goals and improvements, back to the business strategy. So The plant says I want to increase efficiency by X. What does that mean at the human operation level? What does that mean at the quality level? What does that mean at the, the administration level? Okay. This is, I suppose, I would normally do this in a different way, but Excel spreadsheets don't actually present well. But when you develop a business case, what you're trying to look at, what are all those things that I can save money on, right? And then what's the probability of saving money on it? How many times does that issue occur? How much does it cost? Multiply it out, and then you get a number, right? And keep adding all of those up until you get a return on investment. So what's the typical return on investment? It should be in the region of anywhere from 9 months to 2 years on a project like this. And the reason I'm saying a project like this is because the technology is going to keep changing. The cost is going, there is going to be a cost of ownership. It's not like you buy a packaging machine and you run it till it's dead 10 years later. Your return on investment there may be longer. But you need to be looking at returns on investments here of 2 years or less. Again, I give you the slides, but there's a whole bunch of them. These are only just typical ones. You probably all have your own return on investments. But I suppose make them tangible, right? So there's one here, right? This isn't the tangible. You can measure the expertise you share. How much does it cost an hour? How many of them will I save? You can measure headcount. You can measure the costs of using less qualified resources. You can measure if I have to replace a resource. For example, how many resources are we losing every year? How much does it cost to retrain a resource? Reputation. So some of these ones are around recall. So if you look at something like the recall numbers, I don't have them with me now, but the FDA recall numbers for this year. So something like, I think it was 500 biologics, medical device, and the food and pharma products have been recalled in the US in the first 9 months of this year. I don't know what your businesses are, but can you imagine the cost of recalling a drug, a food product, proving that it wasn't you or it was you, and all the disruption all the way down the food chain, down to, you might say, well, the product recall doesn't affect me. But if you're a quality analyst sitting in your desk every day doing your routine work and a product is recalled, well, you know what you're going to be doing tomorrow. You know what you're going to be doing for the next week. You're going to be working on that recall until you prove that it is or it isn't what you needed. So people don't measure that. People don't measure the cost of that. Cost of investigations, cost of recalls, and the cost of reputation. So that's just at the plant level. That's just at the labor level. What if, there was a scale with broccoli, there's a scale with burgers. Like, what's the cost of all of that to the organization? And that's assuming they don't go out of business. If you can prevent any of that, if you can present 0.1% of those recalls or 1% of those recalls because you found something in your plant which prevented it, well, then there's a business case. Again, corporate might listen to that one, but there's multiple business case scenarios there. Challenges, okay, so that's it. You got your money, you've got your business plan, you know how you've done it, you've got your technology, but there is challenges, right? So the IT infrastructure itself cannot handle all the data. So like I showed you before, technology is there. But if you're handling a lot of data, can you store it? Is it resilient? Because once you become reliant on that decision, how do you run the plant if you don't have the data? So you need to now make sure your IT infrastructure is up to scratch. The next one is the quality of the data in there and the context of the data. So if you don't know what context that data was gathered under, I would say it's rubbish in, rubbish out. You're never going to produce metrics on it. One that catches a lot of people is that the data validation, right? So if you're using it for just optimizing OE, that kind of stuff, you don't need to validate the data. Now, if you start to release a product on that data, and you start to answer responses to audits, now that data needs to be validated, and that's a bigger picture. You need to make sure the cost of that is included. Re-engineering, business re-engineering, retraining, and the fear factor. So this is a soft one really, but I know what operator 3 did at 3 o'clock this morning. Is he happy? Maybe he's not, right? Is he going to try to create issues? So be cognizant of it. people are moving on, but it's still there, right? The other thing is that the projects like this take resources, right? And normally they take their best resources. So if you want to implement projects, you need to consider that you're going to be taking people. And every day, production is king, right? You need to get product out the door. So when the issues arise, those people may be called back if you haven't secured the resources, right? The other one, can you really measure ROI? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But what I'm saying is you need to set out to have a set of ROI numbers that you can actually measure and that you can step back after 2 years and prove that you did do the job, right? Over expectation, from you get no data to now I want to know, I want to know everything about the plant. It's not Google, it's not YouTube. If the data isn't there, you're going to have a challenge. Scope creep, again, when people see all the fancy whistles and bells, then they might want a new iPad, they might want a mobile device, and that starts, so now instead of all the managers wanting mobile iPads, everybody in the plant wants them. So just watch scope creep. Industry experience, again, it's there, but because we're going into a new era now of using that data, it's a bit like serialization. 3 years' time, there'll be no issue with serialization experience. Everybody will have it. But now at the moment, because there's a peak and people are on a learning curve, it is a challenge. And then just the known unknowns. So that's it. I don't think we have time for questions and answers, but if anybody wants to stop out, I'm just outside the door there. And thanks for your attention.